Okay, so let's do this. Today we are learning 4.3, which is synthetic division, page 7 in your notes. Today's learning target is to compare and contrast long division with synthetic division. So, synthetic division, you start by writing the coefficients of the polynomial using 0 for any missing terms. So it's just the numbers in front of the polynomial, not the variables themselves. So if you notice from this example, the coefficients are A, B, C, and D. Then you take the opposite of whatever your factor is in front. So you set this to 0, so you get x equals k, so we're going to synthetically divide by positive k. You drop the first coefficient down, so whatever this is drops down. Then you multiply the factor k to the coefficient a, so it's k times a. That product goes below the next coefficient. From there, you're going to add these two numbers and put the sum down here. Then you repeat. You multiply k times that sum, put it here, add those up, put it here, and so on. The very last number is the remainder. Once you have that final remainder, you write your final answer with the reduced power. So if this was x cubed, the reduced power would be starting off with x squared. So if we were to divide x cubed minus 3x squared plus 8x minus 5 by x minus 1 using long division, notice there's no missing terms. We have x cubed, x squared, x, and then no x. So we can just write that under the divide by sign. And then we're dividing by x minus 1. Remember, you always look at the first term. So we're looking at how many times x goes into x cubed. So x times what is x cubed? It's x squared. Once you know what that value is, you multiply that to both of these. So it would be x squared times x, which is x cubed, and x squared times a negative 1, which is a negative x squared. Remember, you're subtracting that entire row, so you change both signs. Notice how the x cubes cancel. We have negative 3x squared plus x squared, which is a negative 2x squared. And then you can drop down the next term. So then you start by looking at the first value, x. X times what is negative 2x squared? That would be a negative 2x. Then we multiply. Negative 2x times x is negative 2x squared. Negative 2x times negative 1 is a positive 2x. Remember, we're subtracting that entire row, so you're going to change both signs. So this is going to become positive, and this is going to become negative. Notice the x squareds cancel. So we have 8x minus 2x, which is 6x. Drop the last term. X times what is 6x? That would be a positive 6. Now we multiply that through. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. You're subtracting that entire row, so change both signs. Notice how 6x minus 6x cancels, So I'm left with a negative 5 plus 6, which is a positive 1. So my remainder is 1 over what I'm dividing by, x minus 1. So this is the way we did this on our last lesson, using long division. We're going to do this exact same problem, but this time we're going to use synthetic division. Okay, so using synthetic division, you start by writing the coefficients of each of these terms. So this is a 1x cubed, and then a negative 3x squared, a positive 8x, and a negative 5. So remember, we're not writing the variables, we're only writing the numbers in front of the variables, the coefficients. So then we write an upside down divide by symbol. And then we take the opposite of our factor. When I set this to 0, I'm going to get x equals positive 1. And that is the number we put in front of our divide by symbol. So the steps for synthetic division are to start by dropping down the first value. So we're going to drop down the 1. Then you multiply these two numbers. So 1 times 1 is 1. That's going to go below the next coefficient. And then we add this row. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Then we multiply. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. That goes below the next number. 8 plus negative 2 is 6. And we multiply. 1 times 6 is 6. And then we add these. Negative 5 plus 6 is 1. So these are the coefficients of our polynomial after dividing. So since we divided out an x minus 1, it is not going to be x cubed anymore. The power is going to drop by 1. So instead of it being x cubed, it's now 1x squared, or just x squared. Then you write it in descending order. So this would be minus 2x plus 6 plus we have a positive 1 over what we were dividing by, x minus 1. Notice how that is the exact same answer that we got using long division. Most people tend to like synthetic division better though. Tends to go a little bit quicker. So let's go ahead and give it a try on number 1a. First, you should notice that there is something missing in our polynomial. We have x to the 4th minus 7x squared plus 9x minus 10. You should hopefully be noticing that x cubed is a missing term. So when we write our coefficients, we have 1x to the 4th, we have 0x cubes, a negative 7x squared, a positive 9x, and a negative 10. And that is being synthetically divided by our factor x minus 2. When I set this factor to 0, I get x equals positive 2. That's what I'm going to put in front of the synthetic division. You always start by dropping the first number, and then we multiply. So 2 times 1 is 2. Then the pattern is to add. 0 plus 2 is 2. Then we multiply again. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we add. Negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3. Then we multiply. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Adding 9 plus negative 6, we get 3. Then we multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. And then we add negative 10 plus 6 and get negative 4. So this is going to be rewritten now with the variables included. We have to drop the power by 1. So if this is x to the 4th, the power dropped will be x cubed. So now we have a 1x cubed, or just x cubed, plus 2x squared minus 3x plus 3, plus we have a negative 4 for our remainder over what we divided by, x minus 2. So that is our final answer. For part B, notice we have 2x cubed minus 4x plus 5 being divided by x plus 4. This time we have a missing term with the x squared value. So when we write our missing coefficients, we have 2, we have 0x squareds, a negative 4x, and a positive 5. This is synthetically being divided by x plus 4. When I set this to 0, I get negative 4. So to synthetically divide, you drop down the first term. Then we do the pattern of multiply, then add. So it's negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8. 0 plus negative 8 is negative 8. Then we multiply and add again. So negative 4 times negative 8 is a positive 32. Negative 4 plus 32 is 28. Then we multiply negative 4 times 28 and get negative 112. 5 plus a negative 112 is a negative 107. Our final answer is written with the variables included. So if our polynomial was x cubed, if we drop the power by 1, this is going to be a 2x squared. In descending order, this would be minus 8x plus a 28, plus we have a remainder of negative 107 over, we were dividing by x plus 4. Number 2 says to use the given factor to factor completely using synthetic division. So in this case, we know that this is going to be able to go into this polynomial with 0 as the remainder. Because it is a factor, it should go into that number without a remainder. So let's go ahead and set this up. There's no missing terms. So our coefficients are 1, negative 3, negative 16, and negative 12. We're dividing by our factor x plus 1. So when we synthetically divide, set it to 0, we're going to get negative 1. You drop the first number down. Then we do our multiply and add pattern. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. And then negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. Multiply negative 1 times negative 4 is 4. Negative 16 plus 4 is negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 1 is positive 12. Negative 12 plus 12 is 0. Again, if you don't get 0 here, that tells you you did something wrong, since they told you it's a factor. So now we're going to rewrite this as our variables. So if this is x cubed, this is going to drop by a power of 1, so this is going to be 1x squared, or x squared, minus 4x, minus 12. We don't need to write the remainder of 0. So that is what we have after synthetically dividing by x plus 1. Notice we can factor completely by doing a t-chart. So x squared is x and x. Multiplying up to negative 12, we would have a negative 6 and a positive 2. Notice when you cross check, it's negative 6x plus 2x, which does make a negative 4x. Since we have to factor completely, that means we have to list all of the factors. So we have our factor that we synthetically divided by x plus 1. In the top row, we have x minus 6, and our bottom row, x plus 2. So all three of these are our factors. For part B, this time we are synthetically dividing by x plus 7 into this polynomial. Notice we have an exponent of 4, 3, 2, 1, and no x's, so we don't have any missing terms. So our coefficients are 4, 26, negative 8, 39, and negative 21. We are synthetically dividing, so we set this to 0, and we get negative 7. To synthetically divide, we drop down the first number, and then we do our multiply and add pattern. So negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. 26 plus negative 28 is negative 2. Multiply and add. Negative 7 times negative 2 is a positive 14. Negative 8 plus 14 is a positive 6. Negative 7 times 6 is negative 42. 39 plus 42 is negative 3. Negative 7 times negative 3 is a positive 21. Negative 21 plus 21 does have a remainder of 0, so we know we did this correct. So I'm going to rewrite this in descending order. If the power was x to the 4th, after synthetic division, this is going to be x to the 3rd. So we have 4x to the 3rd minus the 2x squared plus the 6x minus the 3. Again, we don't have a remainder. Now that we have this, we still need to factor it. Notice we don't have 3 terms, we have 4. So we're not going to be able to t-chart. Instead, we're going to factor by grouping. So looking at the first 2 terms, what is the greatest common factor in the first 2 terms? In this case, it would be a 2x squared. So 4x cubed divided by 2x squared is 2x. And then we have a negative 2x squared divided by a 2x squared, which is a negative 1. The greatest common factor on the last 2 terms, we can divide out a positive 3. 6x divided by 3 is 2x. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. Notice how our groups match. So we're going to rewrite this. We have 2x squared plus 3 as our first parentheses. And then our like groups form our second factor, which is 2x minus 1. So factored completely, we've factored what we divided by using factor by grouping. But don't forget that we also factored by this x plus 7. So that is factored completely. Number 3 says that given a 0 of the function, find the other zeros. So this time we are not given a factor, we're given the x value. So we don't have to set this to 0 anymore. This is if we were given the factor x plus 4. That's what that -4 means as a 0. So if we're trying to find the other zeros, that means we have to solve for x this time. So we're going to synthetically divide by -4. So our coefficients are 3, -16, -103, and +36. And we're synthetically dividing by -4. So to synthetically divide, you drop the first number down. Then the pattern is multiply and add. So -4 times 3 is -12. -16 plus -12 is a -28. -4 times -28 is a +112. -103 plus 112 is 9. -4 times 9 is -36. And 36 plus -36 is 0. Again, you should have a remainder of 0 if you are given a solution to the function. So we're going to rewrite this with decreasing the power by 1. So if this is x cubed, this is going to be starting with x squared. So we have 3x squared minus 28x plus 9. In order to solve for x, we still have to factor this. It's a trinomial, so we can t-chart. To multiply to 3x squared, we have 3x and x. We need this to multiply to 9, so we can do 3 and 3, or we can do 9 and 1. In this case, to get to -28, we have to have a -1 and a -9. This way we get a -27x and a -1x, which does make a -28x for our middle term. Now that we have factored completely, we want to set each of these factors equal to 0. So when you solve the top row, you would add the 1 and divide by 3. The bottom row, we would add the 9. So top row, add the 1, divide by 3, you get 1/3. Bottom row, you add the 9, so you get x equals 9. But you can't forget the x value you were already given. So x equals -4 is also the other 0. Remember, the exponent, the largest exponent, tells you how many solutions you should have. So that's the way to make sure you have them all listed. So for this one, we should have 3 solutions based on the x cubed. We are going to synthetically divide by 9. So our coefficients are 1, -9, -5, and 45. And we're synthetically dividing by 9. You start by dropping the first term. Then you do the multiply and add pattern. So 9 times 1 is 9. Add these. -9 plus 9 is 0. Multiply 9 times 0 is 0. -5 plus 0 is -5. 9 times -5 is -45. And 45 plus a -45 does leave us with a remainder of 0. So now we rewrite this using the x variable. So if this is x cubed, dropping it by a power of 1 would mean this is going to be x squared. But notice we have 0 x's. So what this is saying is we have x squared minus 5. Please note that you cannot t-chart that because 5 is not a squared number. So we're just going to set that factor equal to 0. So to solve for x squared, we're going to add the 5 over. That gives us x squared equals 5. Then we can square root both sides, and we get plus or minus the square root of 5. Notice that's only 2 answers. We're supposed to have 3. So that means we need to write x equals 9 as another solution.